Hi guys, Trudy here, One Grounded Angel. This is the weekly angel card reading for the week beginning at Monday the 16th of September through to Sunday the 22nd, 2019, in case you've forgotten what year it is. I often do. Let's start reading the cards for Monday. We'll see, I'm shuffling the cards here and we'll see what jumps out. Awkward shuffler as always. Let's see what's on. Okay. Communicate with your angels. So there's two ways to look at this. One is it's an invitation for you to really ask for help. Remember, your angels, your spirit guides, any other divine entities who are working with you cannot intervene in your life without your permission. So if you're struggling with something, you have to ask for help. This is something I struggle with all the time, by the way. I get so in my stuff that I forget to ask. So even someone like me who's working with this stuff on the regular, I still forget to ask for help sometimes. So on one level, this could be saying, hey, you're not alone, ask for help, and listen to the answer. That's super important too. You're not going to get the answers if you're asking for help, but you're still rushing around trying to get things done all the time. You need to have time for self-reflection, for thinking, for being on your own, for being away from your screen. I know it's challenging, but it's important. And please, let's overlook the irony of the fact you're actually watching this on a screen right now. Yeah, so meditation is obviously a big part of that, but lots of people say, meditation just isn't my thing. And so, I go in and out of being a good meditator and being a bad meditator, not to put a label on it, but being committed, put it that way. So instead, I like to do things like journaling, walking in nature, all those sorts of things that actually help me to self-reflect. And that's when you'll get those answers. So secondly, this word communicate, they really are putting a lot of energy around this one here. So the thing to remember with this one is we're all here to communicate with the people around us, and that's what we need to do in order to get our needs met. We can't expect people to read our minds, unfortunately. So if you're not getting what you need from someone, you need to ask for it, and don't just hope that one day they'll change their mind and treat you nicely, because that's what you would do in their position. It's just not the way it works. Especially if we're talking about people who are not treating you fairly. I mean, there's no incentive for them to change and start treating you fairly if you are allowing them to treat you badly. So the onus is on you with that one in terms of the boundaries. And I know that's not an easy thing to do. If you've got real barriers to setting boundaries, you might like to talk to me about energy healing to work through whatever it is that you're afraid of in terms of setting the boundaries. Because, setting boundaries is an act of love. It's not tough love, whatever tough love. I don't get the point of that, why that term's even needed to me. What people think of as tough love is just love. I don't see why we need to call it tough love. It is an act of love. It's not being mean. So there's a lot of different things you can take from this. It might be about communicating with the divine, or it might be communicating with the people around you and doing a better job on that front. So asking for what you need. It might be sharing your feelings, opening up, being authentic, not wearing a mask, not pretending everything's okay when it's really not okay, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to go with this card deck next. For Tuesday, let's see what card comes up for the 17th of September. That took a really long time today. I know it's not very interesting to watch someone just shuffling cards with nothing much happening. However, we get the card we need in the end, and this is the sacral chakra. So chakras are energy centers in our energy field or our aura. When they get blocked by things like past life experiences, toxic energy we've picked up from people around us, things like fears and limiting beliefs we've got for whatever reason, that means the energy is just not going to flow through that energy center like a disc very well, which means you get imbalances, you get blocks, and that affects your well-being and potentially even your physical health. So the sacral chakra is the one associated with emotions, with creativity, and with sexual energy. So we had the Pisces full moon on last Friday or Saturday, depending on where in the world you are. And that's strongly associated with creativity. So you might have got a bit of a release if you've had a creative block lately, but you might have also felt a lot of emotions, because Pisces is a very emotional sign. Not quite as emotional as Cancer, but it's a water sign. So yeah, you might have been feeling emotional for that reason. because the energy doesn't just go away once the moon has actually hit its its highest point. Or as in direct opposition to the sun, the energy from that full moon can hang around for, depending on who you ask, around 2 weeks. So that might be going on for you, but this might also be asking you to actually give in to your emotions. Stop trying to stuff them down and hope they go away. It doesn't work. That means you'll end up exploding in anger. And I know, yes, anger is an emotion. I'm not trying to deny that, but it's not a helpful one because it's suppressing something underneath. And usually we only get to the anger when we haven't dealt with the other stuff. Or we go straight to the anger in an attempt to avoid the other stuff, the deeper fears. Why am I so angry at this person? It's because they make me feel like I'm not a good person, and deep down I'm afraid I'm not a good person. I don't know, just an example. So this might be asking you to look at some of your emotional stuff that's going on, and we talk about how we're super emotional at different times. The fact is we're probably emotional all the time. It's the nature of being human, but we try to stuff that down sometimes or avoid it because we think that's that's going to prevent us from having, from being whatever we're trying to be. Now, sexual energy is another one here. You can see why that is connected. For one, sex can be very creative, and for another, it is an expression, a self-expression. You can't go to that vulnerability that's involved in sex or good sex if you are trying to be something you're not. So there is a connection there sometimes with the solar plexus chakra, which is all about power and control. Sometimes with the throat, which is all about communication, and we have had a card about communication here too. So I feel there may be a connection here. Often there are multiple meanings to these cards, and often the right meaning will be related to what is falling on either side of the cards. And as an example, last Saturday we had a card about patience, and on either side we had cards about miracles. So it's a very strong theme about being patient and believing in things that can happen beyond the realm of possibility as far as your brain determines possibility. Remembering is much more possible beyond what you realise. But going back to this card here, it could be about maybe if your sex life isn't going so well, is that because you're not communicating what you actually need or what you want, or you're afraid to ask for what you want, or in some way, or maybe you're putting all the focus on the other person instead of on yourself because you're trying to avoid something. I mean, these are big questions to ask. Or it could be also that there is some sort of wounding in your energy around sex. We live in the West, we're in a society that has a lot of shame around sex, particularly if you're a woman, and particularly if you've, but also for men, particularly if you've had a religious upbringing. There's a lot of hang-ups we have around sex that really hold us back from something that doesn't need to be shackled with all that stuff. So you might like to look at some therapy if that's the issue for you, or you might like to look at some energy healing as well to get rid of some of those blocks. So things can flow a bit better there. It's not necessarily about having great sex. It's about making sure there's nothing in the way of you having great sex if you wanted to, because it's not necessarily a problem. It's more just about what does that mean if you are blocked in that area and you don't want to be. What is going on there? Is it about not being comfortable with being who you are? Is it body issues? Is it fear of being hurt? I mean, there's all sorts of things that could be going on there. So yeah, you can definitely see why that's connected to the emotional stuff, hey? Let's go on to Wednesday now with a card deck that I don't use super often, but when I do, I get a lot of really good stuff here. So we've actually had 2 cards come up and they're very connected. So the first one's faith. You could really just insert everything I said last week about those miracle messages here. It is about trusting in things that we cannot see, which is the whole point of faith, because if we know something is guaranteed, there's no faith involved at all. So this is about trusting that there's much more possible than beyond what seems likely at the present time. So please keep the faith. That's the simplest way to put it there. But this other card here is about adventure. See how they're connected? So we need to push ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone in order to get the payoffs. Now, for some people that's super triggering. Their fear of safety is so great that they need to have a huge amount of predictability in their life because their ego is running the show. And that was certainly my story for a long time. The ego never goes away, but the more comfortable, the more you do to diminish those sort of blocks you have towards being comfortable with uncertainty, the better you'll be able to, move into scary terrain, if I can put it that way, because the fear is not going away, but your fear of the fear, if that makes sense, will be decreased. Your tendency to avoid any provoking situation, and instead to show up and sit with it and go, what's going on here? How can I move through this in spite of the fear? It's a bit like that 80s book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I know that became a bit of a naff cliche, but it's true. Cliches they take hold because they are holding something true within them. And even though it sounds a bit naff, it's super good advice. And I do have that book on my bookshelf somewhere. It's probably about time I read it again, because it's a good one. So if you're into astrology, this is all ninth house stuff here. Taking those chances and having the faith it will be okay. Now, I am not endorsing taking really stupid risks, and I'm certainly not endorsing doing things that absolutely terrify you. There is a saying, do one thing a day that scares you, and I think there is some value in that, but I would say within reason. Don't do things for the sake of it, because that's not necessarily going to pay off for you. You're not going to get anything from that. But what I'm talking about is the things where you're getting called to grow, to move in this direction, and it's scaring you because it's the unknown, and the ego does not like the unknown. Here is your invitation to be okay with that, and not to be okay with it, but to sit with that, to not run away, I guess, and to look at how you can move through that and keep going in spite of that resistance. Thursday's card is stress management. I don't know a single person who does not need this message right now. So we know that stress is normal, but we also know that when it becomes prolonged or intensified, there is going to be a consequence to our health, physically, and certainly our mental and emotional health. And certainly I would say our spiritual health as well, because if we're so stressed, we're going to be so deep in our stuff that we're not going to be working on this deeper development stuff that's going on up here. Our connection with the divine will pull away from that and pull more into I'm getting tugged here. Where is my ego taking me? This needs my attention, and not be sitting in what is actually important to me? What do I actually need to be doing right now and thinking about? And sometimes the answer is doing nothing. Being a human being, not a human doing. But back to this card. So on a very practical level, a bit mundane, you might say, do you need to look at how you are managing stress in your life? Notice I did not say avoiding stress, because that's just not realistic. I am one grounded angel. I am about keeping it real. I am not going to advocate trying to strive for a life where there is no stress. Totally unrealistic. So what I'm saying is, how are you managing it? And as an extension from that, how are you creating more of it or intensifying it? Are you trying to please other people or trying to compete with other people? Because that's certainly one way we increase the stress on ourselves. Are you holding on to perfectionism? We're in Virgo. The sun is in Virgo at the moment. That is a sign that is very grounded, but also can get, and is very detail focused, but can be a little bit prone to perfectionism. So make sure that's not showing up for you. Because whenever there's perfectionism going on, there's a fear underlying that of, I'm trying to control my circumstances so I can feel safe. If everything's perfect, then I feel like I'm good enough. I feel like I'm enough. I feel safe. I feel like everything's under control. And that's just a great lie that we tell ourselves, because if you've got those fears, you're probably never going to feel safe within that until you look at what's underneath that. What is making you feel uncomfortable in the first place? Where are your fears around being who you are? That whole good enough stuff. Whoa, massive tangent. Let's come back to this. So going back to the management, are you perhaps not supporting your body enough in terms of being active every day, in terms of getting enough nutrients in your diet, the things that will help support you with your stress, drinking lots of water? So important. It's very easy to be so busy that you neglect that, but water is so good for not just your physical health, but definitely for your spiritual health as well. It really helps with that cleansing in your energy field. So please don't forget that one. Well, you probably will because you're human, but please make a conscious effort to do a better job of that, and that goes for me as well. I certainly need to do that. And sleep as well. Please don't stay up late watching crap TV. It's not serving you in any way. It's overstimulating you and preventing you from being quiet enough to actually do the restorative work you need to do. So yeah, that's managing stress, but equally making sure you're not exacerbating it with your own unrealistic expectations, your own super high standards that are unachievable, or you're trying to compete with other people, or you're looking for your worth in other places where you're not going to find it in your job. And it's not to say that having a satisfying job is not important. It's just to say that make sure you don't over attach your value and your identity to it, because you'll never, if you're looking to your work to make you feel good enough, you'll never get that from your job. You just won't. It's a bit of a fruitless fruitless pursuit. Let's go to Friday. Whoops, forgot a day. Spread your wings. I love the imagery on this. Look at that beautiful angel of the wings. So you could say that this is basically this card about faith in a different form, and you would be right. It is. It's about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone again. Let me just read you the copy here. Do not hold back right now. The timing is perfect and you are ready to soar. Now, going back to what I've said about fear already, if you really have deep fears, you need to look at that. They're not just going to go away. So please, if you're getting triggered to, say, if you really want a particular job that's something you've never done before, you might like to talk to someone about how you can get some strategies to work through that. Maybe a life coach or a therapist. I can certainly help you with that as an energy healer, because it's not saying that if you reach for it, everything will work out. That's oversimplifying. You need to actually make sure you're doing the work yourself to make sure that you feel okay about pushing yourself, because if your fears are really triggering you on a deep level, you're going to find a way to self-sabotage most likely. The other thing to say about that card is you don't have to reach for the finish line right away. It's okay to break your goals down into smaller steps, so you're spreading your wings incrementally. And in fact, I would say not only okay to do that, but a very good idea. Certainly for me, I would never have jumped from my past career straight to the energy healer, totally self-employed. Too much of a jump. I did it incrementally. I went down to part-time, and then I started doing angel card readings for friends, and then I started charging for it, and then I set up the website. It builds gradually. So that's still spreading your wings. Just because you haven't taken the whole massive leap doesn't mean it's not still pushing yourself out there. It is. It's just you're not. You're doing it in a way that your very human side can still feel a degree of safety within that. I think that's something I advocate. So now we actually are on Saturday. Now that I've got the days right. I don't know that I've picked up the right card deck here. Although this is Archangel Michael's card deck, and we are talking about safety a lot. He is associated with courage, with confidence, with strength. So he's a good person to talk to anytime you need a boost of those things. Now, I've said he. Angels do not have a gender. I just say he because Michael is commonly depicted in a human male form, but you don't have to use that. If you want to use they, that's okay. But the name Michael tends to be a more masculine name, so I guess that's why I tend to go with the he. And the other thing to remember is that, that's right, archangels are not too busy to help you. So your guardian angels are assigned just to you, but the archangels are like a higher realm, and they can be with everyone simultaneously. Please don't ask me how this is possible. I don't know. That's just the nature of the divine. They don't have the constraints that humans have, whereby we can only be in one location at the same time. At any one time. They can be with everyone at the same time, helping everybody, which means that you don't need to feel guilty that you're pulling an angel or an archangel away from some other more important task. You can call on Michael or Gabriel or any other of the archangels without feeling guilty or without worrying that your concern is too trivial. There's nothing too small at all. Going back to this card, sense of humor. Now, The point of this card is not to say that you're worrying about nothing, although perhaps you are. That's not unrealistic, especially if you've got a brain like mine. But it could be that to say that you need to take a lighter approach to it. It is not the be all and end all. The thing that you are focusing all your attention on right now is probably not the make or break thing that you think it is. So try to lighten up a bit, and you might find if you take your attention off this thing that you're so attached to and start doing something else, something fun, that clears your mindset for the answers or the solutions to come through more easily. If you're over attached to something, it's going to be very difficult for you to see it from a different perspective. And if you are in a creative job, or you are someone who is just naturally creative, or you spend a lot of time doing things that are creative, I would argue that everybody's creative, but just for the sake of this example, you probably find that if you're really stuck in a creative task, it's when you walk away from it and do something else entirely that you get a new lease of life on your project. You get another idea, you get the breakthrough. When you're really trying to force things to come through, it doesn't go so well, which is why when I'm writing and I've really just can't get things to come together, going for a walk and coming back later, clearing my mind is really super helpful. So the way this particular card speaks to is doing something fun. It's making sure we're not in that really intense not lower energy, but that really kind of, that worry energy that really keeps us holding on to things that are not actually right for us. Instead, they want us to loosen up, to go do something fun, laugh at something. You might find that taking a humorous approach to the situation actually helps you. If you would know yourself that once you laugh about something, your energy lightens a bit. You can feel a little bit better about it. It might not fix the problem, but it changes your approach, and that is where that can often be a really good platform for getting change, or for getting a different perspective, or just letting go a little bit. The card is really about not over attaching to the thing that you're worried about, not because it's not important. If you're worried about it, it's important, but because it maybe isn't super the be all and end all that you might imagine it to be, and because it probably doesn't warrant the extent of mental real estate that you are devoting to it. Here we have Sunday, divine timing. Now you might remember from the Spread Your Wings card I talked about the timing is perfect, and that actually was getting a ding 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 around it when I was reading it, but then I got distracted and forgot to tell you about it. So interesting, it's come up here, divine timing. Everything plays out when it needs to. Sometimes we don't necessarily take our cues too well. So this is telling, if you're worried that it's not a good time to start this thing because of the economy, because your neighbor says it's not, or because, I don't know, there's something else going on with your family, you're just going to have to put that aside, because this is the right time, and here is the sign that confirms that. So please get going. Get going on whatever it is you're working on. Now, the other way to look at this is about, just before I go on, that the message I just shared around this card, around get going, it is the right time to start, is very much in line with the cards I've already read, and that's why I went to that meaning straight away. But the other meaning I will speak to, because I don't know what's going on in your life, maybe this one has more resonance for you, is divine timing. So that's about trusting that things are going on behind the scenes that you can't see yet, similar to that patience message we had last week, and that the universe has a schedule that's maybe not quite in alignment with yours. You want it now, and maybe you need to actually wait a little bit longer for that. Yeah, it's a patience message again. I know it's not great. We live in an instant gratification society. You can pull out your phone from your pocket and find out anything you want to within seconds, and that's just not the way the world works or the universe works. So sometimes we need to remember that it's not about not working towards what you want, but it is about understanding that just because it's not happening now doesn't mean it's not going to. There's other things going on that you can't see yet. So just, again, keep the faith. So really, that message about keeping the faith from last week has come through really strongly again, and about needing to push ourselves a bit more, making sure that fear is not running the show. As I say, fear never goes away. We just need to make sure that it's not taking an overactive role in determining the choices that we make, and the behaviours that we demonstrate. Yeah, I think that's really strong, this idea about adventure and about pushing ourselves in new directions. Sorry, this should actually be facing you, but might be more helpful. And this idea about timing as well from last week about needing to trust in the timing. I guess those are, yeah, that's the main theme. It's pretty strong actually. We've got really 4 cards if you go with that meaning for that I mentioned here for this one, around the time is now and it's time to push yourself more and to get going on the thing that you want to do that you're scared you'll suck at. Get going anyway. You probably will still be worried that you will suck at it, but you'll never know if you don't try. And so really try and reframe that fear so that it sits beside you. It's not in front of you trying to go, woo, stop, don't go anywhere. That's enough for me. This is 25 minutes. This is very long. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for your attention and your support. I'll be back next week to read for you again. These will be on my Instagram at One Grounded Angel. My Facebook page is One Grounded Angel. I'm starting to post these on my, not post these, but do a little intro on my Instagram story as well. So if 25 minutes is too long for you, well, you got this far, so it must not be. But if you want a really abridged version of these videos, I will be doing that on my Instagram on Instagram TV, so you might find that helpful. Thanks very much for watching. See you next week.